everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you guys are watching this. So my name is Maggie. I am from the Wellness Center at Lehigh Valley Hospital. You guys may recognize me from coming to some of your classrooms. Some of you may not. That's okay. So what the Wellness Center does is we travel to a bunch of different schools and we just teach different health programs. So I teach a lot of different things. I teach things like bullying, stress, nutrition. For you guys today, we are talking about drugs. Now, drugs is a really big topic. There are a lot of them out there, but unfortunately we cannot cover all of them or else this video would be about an hour long. So instead we're going to focus on 3 different types of drugs today. First, we're going to focus on marijuana, just because I know it's a bit of a complicated one with the laws and how it's changing. So I'm definitely going to make some time to talk about that. We're going to talk about heroin and then finally prescription drugs. So those are going to be the 3 that we're focusing on today. Now, if I had it my way, I would be in your classrooms teaching you guys face-to-face. We'd be using clickers, answering questions, but unfortunately, due to the current pandemic and the quarantine, we have to stay indoors. So unfortunately, I am just going to be coming to you live from this video here in my house, so hopefully that works for you guys. I made a couple of videos now. I made one on stress, there's been one on nutrition, one on bullying last week, and now for this week, we are focusing on drugs. So I'm going to keep it short. I don't want to bore you guys to death. I'm sure you guys watch a ton of videos. You're always on Zoom. Believe me, I understand. It is not fun. So instead, let's keep it short, sweet, to the point, and let's get started. All right, let's go. All right, let's start talking a little bit about those different types of drugs I mentioned. So let's start off by talking about what is a drug? What does that word actually mean? Let's define the word drug. So, a drug is any chemical that causes a change in the body system. So it's a chemical that's going into your body and just causing some form of change. So that means it could be any type of change. So it could be a good change or a bad change. Now think about medicine. Medicine is a type of drug, and obviously it's going into your body and helping you to feel really better. So if you have a cold or if you have the flu, you're going to take some medicine and it's going to cause that change and help to go from really sick to nice and healthy. And obviously there are other types of drugs out there, and they can cause some really bad changes. Now, usually when we think of drugs, a lot of people, their minds go right to those really bad illegal drugs. And of course, those are still drugs, but there are some other ones you guys may not think of. So one type of drug you may not consider is coffee, specifically caffeine. So caffeine is technically a type of drug. Think about how caffeine works. So when you're really sleepy, you might drink a big cup of coffee or you might drink an energy drink. And that caffeine is going into your body and causing a change. It's changing you from really sleepy to wide awake. And by definition, that is a drug. So if you're somebody like me who drinks coffee every single day, you are definitely using a drug every single day. But of course, it's okay for you once in a while. You guys are pretty young, so you should not really be drinking coffee or drinking a ton of energy drinks just because they can be pretty bad for you. And honestly, you really don't need all of that caffeine in your system. Your body manages just fine on its own. Another type of drug is alcohol, and of course alcohol for you guys, if anybody is under 21, that is illegal for you. For me, on the other hand, I am over 21. So if I wanted to drink alcohol, I totally could, and for me, that is a legal drug. But of course, alcohol is still a drug. So even though I'm 21, I still have to follow the laws with drinking alcohol, specifically drinking and driving. So if I drink alcohol, I am not allowed to drive my car around because it's causing a really bad change in my body. It's making me really sleepy. It's causing all of my decisions to be delayed, so it can be really dangerous if somebody decides to drink and drive. And of course, there are illegal drugs out there, and we're going to talk about a couple of them today. So first I want to talk a little bit more about prescription drugs. So prescription drugs, these are drugs that you get from a doctor. So if you're really sick, you're going to go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to write you a prescription. It's basically his written permission from the doctor to you saying you are allowed to take this drug. That means you and only you is the person who's allowed to take that medicine. So when you get your prescription, whether it's a liquid or it's a bottle of pills, it's going to have your name on it. And it's also going to have instructions on how to take it. So it may say things like take 1 pill every 6 hours. And it's really important that you follow those instructions exactly. If it says take 1 every 6 hours, that is what you should do. Don't take 2. Don't take it every 3 hours. 1 every 6. Because if you misuse your prescription drugs, you can get really, really sick. You can even have an overdose from taking too many prescription drugs. So make sure anytime you take anything, whether it's a prescription or even an over-counter drug, you're still following the directions, because we never want you guys to make the mistake of taking too much, getting sick, and potentially having an overdose. And if you're not sure, ask an adult who's at home. Even me as an adult, sometimes I look at that bottle and those instructions, they're really small and they're really complicated. And I have to look at it for a second and really think about what it's saying to me. So always, always, always look at the directions first before you take anything. And of course, you're not allowed to share your prescriptions. So like I said, on the bottle, it's going to have your name. That means you and only you is allowed to take that prescription drug. Nobody else. You're not allowed to share it. Just because something is good for you doesn't mean it's good for something else. So I have to take a prescription every single day because I have a health problem. But if I try to share my prescription with one of you, that can make you really sick, because that prescription, it's not meant for you. It's meant for me. Even if you have a sibling who has the exact same illness as you should still never ever share your prescriptions with them. What if your sibling was allergic to that medicine? And also, we're all different people. We're all different heights, different weights, so the doctor takes all that into account and makes a dose that's meant for you. It's really cool how they design them. So I'm a little bit older than you guys, so if I try to share one of my prescriptions, even if we have the same illness, my prescription could be too strong, and it can make you really, really sick. So we never want to share our prescription drugs with anybody. Now, there are a lot of them out there, and there are some that can be a little bit more dangerous than others, specifically one called opioids, prescription opioids. Now, you guys may not have heard that word before, and if you have, you may not, or probably not fully understand what opioids actually means. So opioids are prescription painkillers. So if you have really severe pains, if you had surgery, or if you broke a bunch of bones, your doctor will probably prescribe you opioids, and they're going to take all that pain away, which is really awesome. They're really good for people who do have that really severe pain. But opioids can be very dangerous. Now, a lot of people think, okay, well, if it takes away pain, why don't we just give them to everybody? The reason for that is because opioids can be incredibly addictive and deadly when you abuse them. So if you take more than you should, you can risk having an overdose. And a lot of people become addicted to opioids because they make you feel really, really good. So some common opioids you guys may have heard of include things like Percocets, Oxycontins. Those are all different types of prescription opioids. And again, they are prescription painkillers. So if somebody in your household is taking an opioid, make sure they're always taking the right amount, or if you ever get prescribed one. So I took an opioid once. It was when I had my wisdom teeth removed. And of course, that was incredibly painful. So my doctor prescribed me a prescription opioid, and I followed those directions very, very carefully, because opioids are one type of drug that if you accidentally take too much, it can be life-threatening. And a lot of people are becoming addicted to opioids because they make you feel very similar to heroin. And of course, heroin we know is incredibly addictive. So a lot of people, they're getting prescribed an opioid, they get addicted to it, and later on they're moving on to heroin. That's because heroin makes you feel almost the exact same way as those opioids, except it's a fraction of the cost. So if you try to buy one pill of an opioid on the street, it could cost anywhere from $20 to $40. A dose of heroin, the same dose as a pill, would cost anywhere from $8 to $12. So it's a lot cheaper to move on to heroin. So we have a huge problem right now. A lot of people got addicted to opioids because maybe they did have surgery or they did break a bone. They got addicted, and now they're switching over to heroin. And heroin is absolutely terrible for you. It is one of the worst illegal drugs out there in the world. So heroin, what it is, it's a type of illegal opioid that is highly addictive and incredibly deadly. Some people have an overdose of heroin from just taking one dose. It is one of the most deadly substances in the world. And it's actually the most addictive substance in the world. So out of all the drugs that are out there, think of all the drugs in your head. Out of all of them, heroin is the most addictive. That means you can become addicted after only trying it once, and a lot of people do. A lot of people say to themselves, all right, let me just try this once. I want to see how it's going to make me feel. What will I be like when I'm on it? So they try it, they become addicted, and they stay addicted their entire lives. So I want you guys to think to yourselves, is it easy to stop being addicted? The answer to that question is no. It is one of the hardest things any human being can do is quit using things like heroin. It is so, so hard because heroin changes the way your brain thinks. And a lot of people, they can't do it. So they stay addicted and one day they accidentally overdose and unfortunately pass away. So more people die from heroin and opioids every single year than any other drug in the world. So drugs like cocaine, meth, out of all of those other drugs, heroin causes the most overdoses. And it's really, really sad that this is happening. And it's only going up every single year. So I have a little chart here. This is just showing the difference between 1999 and 2017. So back in 1999, you can see it on the bottom left-hand corner, it says there were over 8,000 overdoses from opioids. That includes prescription opioids, and heroin. So there were 8,000 overdoses. Look at 2017, you guys. So from 1999 to 2017, it went from 8,000 to over 47,000 overdoses. That's insane. That's less than 20 years. Some of you guys may not have even been born in 1999. So to see that difference and see how much it's going up is very scary. And it's going up every single year. So now it's 2020. I'm not sure what the statistics are currently this year, but I'm sure it's even higher than 47,000. So a lot of you are probably wondering, well, why is it going up? Why are more people taking heroin? Why are more people dying from it? Well, the reason for this is because heroin is actually cheaper now than it probably was in 1999. That's because more people are making it and the price of it is going down. So a lot of people are switching to heroin because it's so cheap and it just makes them feel so good and they get super addicted. So it's a really bad problem we have right now, and make sure we never, ever try it because you can end up one of these statistics. You could become a part of the 47,000 people who overdose, and we never want that to happen. So one more drug I want to talk about. This is kind of different from the others, but I do want to make a point to talk about it because I know you guys probably have a lot of questions about it. And this one is called marijuana. So a lot of you have probably heard of marijuana. It also has a lot of names. So it's also called weed, pot, kush, bud. There's a million of them. So that is marijuana. Now, marijuana is kind of interesting because it's changing. So years ago, marijuana was completely illegal in the entire country. So no matter what state you lived in, marijuana was illegal for everybody. That is not the case anymore. In some states, marijuana is actually completely legal recreationally. But even in those states where it is legal, you still have to be 21 to buy and use it. So just like alcohol, you have to be 21. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania, it's only legal for medical use. So if you just wanted to use marijuana, you can't just go out and buy it. You can only get it from a doctor. So it has to be prescribed to you by a doctor. Now, it's kind of complicated to get it. First, you have to go to a very specific doctor who does prescribe it. When you get there, you have to be diagnosed with certain illness. So you can only get it if you have things like seizures, if you have anxiety, if you have cancer. There's a whole list of them. So only these specific illnesses can get you medical marijuana. So after you get prescribed, after you have those illnesses, the doctor will be like, all right, I'm going to treat you for your illness with medical marijuana. After you get that prescription, you have to register online. That costs money. And then you get a medical marijuana card. And again, this all costs money. It is not a cheap process. After you get your medical marijuana card, you can only get marijuana from certain dispensaries. There's only a couple of them. And again, they are not cheap. It's very expensive. So that is how you can get marijuana legally in Pennsylvania. But again, this is a complicated process. It's very expensive, so it's it's a lot tougher than you probably think. And again, you have to be 21. So all of you guys, you're under 21, so you are not able to get it, even if you were qualifying with one of those illnesses. Now, there's a couple different types of marijuana out there. So a lot of people, they may use something called THC or CBD. You can see the picture in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, THC is the part of marijuana that is called the psychoactive ingredient. That's going to be the part of marijuana that makes you feel high. It's that high part of marijuana. CBD, on the other hand, is called the non-psychoactive. That's the part of marijuana that's going to make you feel very sleepy, very relaxed. So a lot of people who have anxiety, they'll take CBD just to help them fall asleep, to help take away that anxiety and just kind of make them feel very calm. So a lot of people may use either one, especially in the states where it is completely legal recreationally. All right, and even though marijuana is legal for people who have the prescriptions, if you are caught using marijuana without a prescription, you can still get into a lot of trouble because it's still technically illegal. So it is not worth using marijuana illegally, getting into trouble, and possibly getting arrested. And just because marijuana is good for people who have those illnesses, it doesn't mean it's good for everybody else. You can still get really sick from taking marijuana. Some people take too much, some people have a really bad time, and they end up having to go to the hospital. So that is something we have to be very, very careful of. And a lot of people, sometimes you'll see synthetic marijuana floating around. So that means it doesn't grow from the ground, it's made in a lab. So people will sell that, and that causes overdoses. So we always have to be careful with what anybody is taking and make sure we do not take drugs under any circumstance. Again, unless you get it prescribed from a doctor, and even then, you are only taking it the way the doctor told you. Alright, so those are the drugs that we're going to focus on today. I hope you guys learned a lot about it. I hope you guys, this is new information. I hope I didn't repeat anything. And I hope you guys learned a little bit more about drugs and the danger of taking them. Make sure we always say no to drugs. And if you know somebody who is really struggling with drugs, make sure to try and find them some help so they can potentially quit in the future or currently. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody learned something. I know we're all stuck in quarantine, but make sure you are all washing your hands. If you go outside, you are practicing social distancing, and make sure you are always wearing your face mask. We want you guys to stay nice and safe, no matter the circumstances. Alright, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Good night, good morning, whatever time it is. See you later.